Hey y'all, I'm Maggie, and you're watching another episode of Suncrest On Demand. Before we go any further, I'm sure someone is watching their first Suncrest On Demand video. I'm super excited that you're here. Help me help you. Text the word Suncrest to 94,000. When you do that, we'll send you a digital gift card directly to your phone for some coffee, simply for getting this far in the video. Now, here's a tip for everyone watching. Make sure you have the Suncrest app. When you use our app, you get insider access to things like past content, upcoming events, stuff to help you, your kids, and your students engage with their faith journey, and much, much more. Actually, if you're looking to take a next step in your own faith journey right now, our app is the best tool to use. You can find the Next Steps button right on the homepage. Take a look right now to sign up for baptism, join a group to find your people here at Suncrest, or join a serving team and make a difference. In our app and on our website, you can also partner with us financially. Your generosity makes a huge difference in Northwest Indiana and beyond through starting new churches. So, on behalf of all of us, thank you for using your finances to change lives. Here's how the rest of this video is going to go. We're going to experience some music. In fact, let us know a lyric you found meaningful in the live chat or comments. We're going to experience communion. Each week we focus on the sacrificial love of Jesus through a simple meal. So, now's the time to gather some food and drink to represent Jesus' body and blood. After the song is done, I'm going to put up a timer on the screen. Feel free to eat and drink when you are ready. After communion is done, we'll listen to this week's message. Once that's done, let us know something meaningful you heard in the live chat or comments. Let's get going.
This is the word here in the flesh, living among the meek and lonely. The voice of God is every breath, salvation of the world unfolding. Behold him, behold him, lift up your eyes, see the Son of Heaven. Hosanna, Hosanna, pour out your praise, sing the name of Jesus. This is his heart upon the cross, and from his wounds his mercies flowing. And now the dawn put death to death, and ever since that grave's been empty. Behold him, behold him, lift up your eyes, see the Son of Heaven. Hosanna, Hosanna, pour out your praise, sing the name of Jesus. Behold him, behold him, lift up your eyes, see the Son of Heaven. Hosanna, Hosanna, pour out your praise, sing the name of Jesus. This is his home, here in our chest. At every door, our Savior's knocking. Oh, let him in. Oh, let him out. With every yes, his kingdom's come.
thrill, a sudden experience of excitement, the sparkle in a child's eye, connection at family gatherings, the closing of a tired year, and the hope of a new one. We all want a thrill. The thrills we chase most holidays are a fleeting experience that flashes bright and leave us wanting more. What if, instead, we felt the thrill of peace?
To begin, I want to ask you a couple of questions. I want you to think about the last time that someone said something that was nice to you. It doesn't have to be dramatic. They gave you a compliment, they encouraged you, they said something nice to you. It may have been within the last half hour here. It may have been today sometime. Some of you are scratching your head and thinking, I don't think anybody said something nice to me for like a week. But genuinely, think about when someone said something nice to you, and here's what I want you to think about. How did it make you feel? What was the feeling that went on inside when someone was kind to you? Mitch just showed you this, but take a look at this picture. Yeah, this was posted by Habitat yesterday on Facebook, and whenever someone online says something nice about our church, it feels to me like they're saying something nice about me. I hope you feel like they're saying something nice about you. And I remember when I saw this show up, I'm like, oh, Habitat. I love Habitat. It's almost as if when they say something nice about us, it draws me to them and it creates in me a feeling. I want you to help identify this feeling. And it's actually a feeling of peace. A feeling of peace. Earlier this week, we were having our all-staff meeting that we have once a month, and I had asked all the people who were baptized over the last month, a big list of people, to make just a short video so I could show it in our all-staff meeting to say thank you to the staff for all the time and effort they put in, especially after a really hard year or two for our team. And it was so inspiring to me to hear from the people who were baptized about the transformation that's happening in their life. And then it was fantastic to me when someone would start telling their story and they'd say, I want to say thank you to, and then they'd list a name. It was Jamie, it was Mitch, it was Skylar, it was Dan, it was Jen. And when someone's name got mentioned, I could just sense it in the room. That person, they felt something inside. Because someone had said something kind about them, something encouraging to them. And I'm going to suggest to you that feeling isn't just a good feeling. It's a feeling of peace. And the reason that I know that is that later on, when you run into people who have said something kind to you, there's something that happens relationally that makes it an easy interaction, a peaceful interaction. It's not a broken interaction. So I had you think about the last time someone said something nice to you. Now I'm going to flip it. When's the last time someone critiqued you? Also may have been in the last half hour. Totally possible. Maybe sometime this week. I was home at Thanksgiving, and one of my nephews came up to me and he said, hey, Greg, your forehead's getting bigger. I'm like, that was not a compliment. Maybe more seriously, over this past year, I've gotten more nasty notes than I've ever gotten before. I'm not going to read them to you, but oh my goodness, they're brutal who disagree with something that we did or some way we handled something. And here's the thing, when someone writes me a very critical note, I always start to picture like, oh, what's going to happen when I run into them? When I see them either here, if they're still here, or at the grocery store or wherever, I think that moment, that is not going to be marked by peace. That's going to be marked by stress, by angst, by chaos, all the things that are the opposite of peace. Now I'm going to flip the whole story one more time. I've been asking you to think about the times you're on the receiving end of someone's compliment or their critique. But actually, for a moment here, I want to ask you about yourself, and I am going to ask all of you to do a show of hands here. I'm curious, when you do an honest assessment of yourself, are you a person who leans toward people would say, oh yeah, that person's an encourager? Or are you the kind of person who'd say, yeah, that person, they're a critic. They're a critic. That person, they're an upper. That person, they're a downer. That person, when I run into them, I feel this sense of peace. That person, when I run into them, it's like, And I really want you to think about yourself right now. And this is not a time to be falsely humble. This is not a time to be bragging. I just want to ask all of you, if you'd be willing to do so, to raise your hands and say, do I lean more toward the encourager or more toward the critic? How many of you would say, I'm more of an encourager? That's who I am. All right, I appreciate that. I'm always interested to see if someone's going to lean over and pull someone's arm down when they try to raise it there, which would lead us to the next question. How many of you would say, honestly, I'm more of a critic? I'm more of a critic. Now, okay, let's just talk about what's going on in the room. I don't know what's happening online, but what's going on in the room is about 30% said I'm an encourager, and then about 5 people said I'm a critic, and the math doesn't work. It just means you're not obedient. That's what it means. So, what does this have to do with Christmas? The idea of someone saying good things to you, encouraging you, or tough things to you that discourages you and creates this angst, or who you are in someone else's life. What's that have to do with Christmas? I think it has everything to do with Christmas and the thrill of peace that you have the potential to be an agent of. You see, when Isaiah, hundreds of years before Christ was coming into the world, was describing the event that would happen 700 years later, this is what he said. For to us a child is born, and he will be called Prince of Peace. If you start to narrow down what are the absolutely essential characteristics of who Jesus was, near the top of the list is the idea that he was the Prince of Peace. He was bringing peace wherever he went. Later on, when Jesus comes into the world, and there's an angelic announcement of such, the scriptures say this: suddenly a great company of heavenly hosts appeared with the angel, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth, peace." The whole idea behind Jesus coming into the world was that he would be ushering in, as the Prince of Peace, the same peace that exists in heaven to bring it about to planet Earth. Now, I want us to think this season about that night and the event that happened when the Son of God was born. I know it's a difficult thing for some people to believe. You think of yourself maybe as more rational-minded or scientifically minded, a miracle that seems to go too far. But I heard someone say recently, and I thought this is healthy, not saying it in a snarky sort of way, said, Christians believe in the virgin birth of Jesus. Atheists believe in the virgin birth of the universe. Choose your miracle. Choose your miracle. That no matter what, something miraculous happened, and part of the miracle was bringing peace to earth. Now, Jesus, of course, would grow up, and he would become a teacher and so much more, but just this one line from the central teaching of Jesus that we call the Sermon on the Mount, as he was describing what we call the Beatitudes, he said this: "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." Don't miss this. Christ comes into a broken, angst-filled, chaotic world as the Prince of Peace. When he comes, it's announced that he's now bringing the peace that is in heaven to earth. He displays that himself. He has this aura of peace. And then, for those of us who become his followers and have received his grace, the calling on our lives is to live the life that Jesus lived and to also be people who have this aura of peace. So over the next few weeks, we're going to talk about this peace. The idea is, in a couple of weeks on Christmas Eve, I'm going to talk about your peace with God and finding the peace of God. It's going to be a beautiful night. Next week, I'm going to actually ask you all to zero in on one relationship that you have. I don't know what it is. You'll identify it next week. Where peace could change a broken relationship this Christmas. But today, it's actually not about other people. It's not about a broken relationship. I want you to do potentially the deepest dive you've ever done in your own self-reflection to say, when I walk through my house, when I walk through my neighborhood, when I walk through my workplace, is there an aura of peace around me, just like there is with Jesus? Now, usually in a message, I kind of wait until the end to give you like the exact thing that I want you to do. Like this is the application part of the message. I've decided to move it way up in the message. So this is not going to be complicated. I'm going to tell you right out of the gate here. This is exactly what I want you to do to practice this peacemaker thing. Here it is. When anything positive or encouraging comes to mind, express it. This is not complicated. When you like somebody's sweater, say it. When you see your children doing something good, say it. When you see someone make a decision of character, say it. When your best friend helps you out, you want to express gratitude, say it. When people make the right choice, say it. When someone's hair looks nice, say it. If it's your boss, say it. If it's your spouse, say it. If it's your kids, say it. If it's your neighbor, say it. The whole idea is that whenever anything positive or encouraging or affirming comes to mind, you're going to say it. You can say it by text. You can say it by phone call. You could say it by email. You could say it, heaven forbid, by writing an actual letter to someone and saying it. But by all means, say it. If 20 nice things come to mind for you tomorrow, I want you to say it 20 times to whoever they're about. We will be these people. Now, this is so fascinating to me because I think this is the expression the New Testament gives us of hospitality. Now, sometimes when you think about hospitality, you think, oh, that's someone who's really good at decorating their home and it looks awesome and da-da-da-da. But I heard this quote of hospitality once. I love it. Hospitality is when someone leaves your home feeling better about themselves, not better about you. So, bottom line application number 1, whenever anything positive or encouraging comes to mind, just say it. Now, this is the other application. Number 2, this is not complicated. When anything negative or critical comes to mind, don't express it. Don't express it. Now, I know this is a challenge for people, right? But here's what I'm saying. When you don't like someone's sweater, just don't say it. When dinner didn't taste that good, just don't say it. When your friend let you down a little bit, just let it pass. When you're frustrated with your parents or with your children, just don't say it. When you're at work and you're feeling this angst and you want to lash out, when you're on social media and you want to type something, just don't. Whenever something critical or negative comes to mind, just don't say it. Don't text it. Don't write a letter about it. Don't pick up the phone. Just let it go. You got it? This isn't complicated. I mean, I probably could just pray right now. I'm just 11 minutes and 50 seconds into this message. But some of you are sitting there and thinking, Greg, that's a little too simple and maybe not even healthy. And actually, I agree with you. It is a little too simple and maybe not healthy. Because you're starting to think about times when you care about someone and something's going off course in their life and you think, but shouldn't I say something? And you're thinking about things that are wrong in the world and injustices that people face. And you think, well, shouldn't somebody say something? We can't just live this fantasy life, this plastic life where I just notice all the good things, say them all the time, notice all the bad things and just dismiss them, never engage them at all, and just go on with life. Is that really what you want us to do, Greg? Well, let me encourage you with a person some of you will know of. Just a couple of years ago, John Lewis passed away. He, of course, served in Congress, but his early days were in the civil rights movement, including the March Across the Bridge. And John Lewis was known for the phrase, make good trouble. Make good trouble. And I think he actually is, for us, a model of being able to stop and think, okay, sometimes you have to say something, but make sure that when you're making trouble, you make good trouble. And actually, if you listen to John Lewis, I think he could be an inspiring figure for how to handle difficult situations where perhaps an injustice is happening. This is one of my favorite quotes from John Lewis. He says, never let anyone, any person, or any force dampen, dim, or diminish your light. He's referencing the scriptures here. You are the light of the world. Release the need to hate, to harbor division, and the enticement of revenge. Release bitterness. Hold only love, only peace in your heart. Knowing that the battle of good to overcome evil is already won. What was it that prompted John Lewis to create good trouble? It was actually because he was a man of faith and he knows how the arc of history ends. It's a trust in God that all things will be restored, that the battle actually has already been won, so I only have to play my part in bringing about the good trouble. The scriptures describe this all over the place. I really want you to think about this when you think about your aura of peace. Let me give you 4 different scriptures. If it's possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Now, I'm going to do a deep dive on this scripture next week as we talk about a particular relationship that you have, but for just this moment, let's just break it down. Live at peace, no angst, no chaos. I'm the one in the relationship who makes sure there's feelings of peace around this. And who do I do that with? With the people who deserve it, right? No, with everyone. Paul does acknowledge, if it's possible. It may not be possible. You're only one part of an equation in any situation that you're in. There are other people, there are other circumstances. It's just the part of the follower of Jesus who says, I'm going to bring peace. And if it's possible, as far as it depends on me, I'll live at peace with everyone. Sometimes in our world, because we know there are injustices, I don't know, I'm not going to answer this for you. I'm just going to ask it to you. In the angst of our world, and so many people feeling offended and feeling like the injustice is theirs, do you think our bigger problem in this world is that we're not speaking up about injustices? Or do you think our bigger problem is that everyone is claiming injustice? And if you take it out of the systemic nature of things and you reduce this, as I think this next scripture does, to just our interpersonal relationships with each other, not some big social issue, but just the way I relate to you and you relate to me. Is there any reason to not just say all the good things and zip it on all the bad things? See, the Proverbs says this: a person's wisdom yields patience. Now, that sentence, I could do a sermon on it, because wisdom is the opposite of foolishness. Wise people understand how today's events affect tomorrow's outcomes. Foolish people don't connect the dots. That's the difference. And if you have wisdom, guess what it does? If you can see how this is going to affect tomorrow, it actually breeds patience. Because patience today will serve you better tomorrow than impatience will. And then it says what you would do with this. It is to one's glory to overlook an offense. What if you were the person you were known for, man, that person just overlooks the offenses. That person just overlooks the offenses. You would be known as a person of peace. When people offended Jesus most of the time, he just overlooked the offense. And what did it do for him? It created this aura of peace around him, that he wouldn't engage the critics, that he wouldn't fight back. He wouldn't. He just overlooked the offense. This passage became very real to me about a decade ago. Because, we all have interesting people in our families. And in Jenny's family, my wife's family, there was a matriarch of the family. We call her Grandma Iney. Some of you have probably heard me talk about Grandma Iney before because she was such a special figure. And when I first started coming around Jenny's family, it was like, hey, let's go to Sunday dinner. It's at Grandma Iney's house. And I found out very quickly, everybody loves Grandma Iney, but it's not just that they loved her, they respected her. And I'm like, is it because she's a good cook? Because she was a very good cook. But people didn't go to Sunday dinner at Grandma Iney's house for the food. People went to Sunday dinner at Grandma Iney's house for Grandma Iney. She was the kind of person that you wanted to hang around. She was the kind of person, if you stood next to her or you talked to her, she would make you feel better about yourself. And at the same time, she'd make you want to be a better person to be like her. It was so amazing. And then she got sick. And I learned that the family wanted me to lead her funeral once she died. Every year, our family goes back to our hometown on Labor Day weekend for a family reunion, and I knew going on Labor Day weekend of the year 2010 that we were within months of Grandma Iney passing, and I was going to do her funeral. And I thought, I want to have one last rich conversation with her about what makes her who she is. What gives her this aura of peace that follows her everywhere she goes? What is it about her that actually makes everyone feel better around her and also makes us want to be better around her? And I'll never forget, because I know that the proverb that I just read you, this is what Grandma Iney said to me sitting on her couch. She said, if you're going to be a good family person, you'll have to overlook a lot of faults. And for some of you, that's your message tonight. Because in your house, there's an aura. But the aura creates eggshells. And maybe in your workplace, there's an aura. The aura doesn't come because you're willing to overlook things. You're willing to not say it when you see something go wrong. But I promise you, the wisdom of Grandma Iney will stand. If you're going to be a good family person, you have to overlook a lot of faults. One of the things the scripture described, this is in the letter to the Philippians that Paul wrote. He said, do everything without grumbling or arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure, children of God without fault in a warped and crooked generation. Do you remember what the promise was? Blessed are the peacemakers, for they are children of God. Do you remember who we should live at peace with? We should live at peace with everyone. So this means that in every interaction that I have, this is why I'm so passionate about this, to say when you notice something nice, say it. When you notice something critical, just don't say it. Because do everything without grumbling or arguing. And then this is the vision. Then you will shine among them like stars in the sky. It will be as if there's an aura around you. Because you have become a person of peace, a person whose life looks just like Jesus' life. Listen, if you're sitting here tonight and you're not a follower of Jesus, you can chuck everything I'm saying right out the window. But if you are sitting here tonight and you are a follower of Jesus, then the deep dive into our hearts and our souls has to ask ourselves, when I walk into a room, is there an aura of peace, just like Christ had? And then we start to get some lessons for how to do this when you are in a tough situation. This passage says, don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up. You know, people hear this, don't let any unwholesome talk, and they think, oh, does that mean I shouldn't say some cuss words? Well, here's the thing. You Probably shouldn't say the cuss words, but that's not what this is about. The unwholesome talk is the talk that tears people down. The contrast with the unwholesome talk is, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs. See, this is where the aura comes. It all of a sudden means I don't live this self-centric life, this place where every experience I'm having, I'm consuming it through the reference point of myself. Actually, what I'm doing is I'm walking around in every setting that I'm in, and I'm thinking, well, what are their needs, and how could I build them up according to their needs, not according to what I need from them? And I promise you, that will start to create an aura around you, that it may benefit those who listen. So, just so I can be clear before I'm done, sometimes you do need to offer correction to people. It's not that it never needs to happen. I just wanted you to run yourself through a grid first before you think, I need to offer correction. I'm going to give you 4 principles. They actually show up in your outline on the app as 4 boxes. And this is essentially a checklist to say, well, if I can accomplish it doing these 4 things, then by all means, offer the correction. Here's the qualifiers for that. The threshold for correction starts with, am I responsible for them? So, teachers are responsible for classrooms. Judges are responsible for courtrooms. Bosses are responsible for workplaces, and parents are responsible for their children. If you raise a child and never gave them correction, you would create a monster. I am not suggesting that when you're literally in authority, that you have a God-given responsibility to guide and lead someone, that you would take that seriously, and that, of course, from time to time, you will need to offer correction. But what if you're not responsible for them? What if they're not under your authority? What if you're a peer to one another? What if we're talking about spouting stuff off into the internet-driven world? Then there is no place for it. Am I responsible for them? Second, are my words helpful? Are my words helpful? This is a different question than are my words true? This is a different question than are my words justified? When necessary to offer correction to someone, and it will come up from time to time, you just have to ask yourself, are these words helping someone? And actually, it was interesting. When I was writing this down this week, I started to write the word helpful, and instead I wrote hopeful. Are my words hopeful? And then after I looked at both of them together, I thought, I think it's kind of the same thing. Like, do my words of correction end with a sense of hope that things can be better? And with a sense of help that I'm for you, and I want something good for you. Similarly, you could ask the third question, do they know I love them? Do they know I love them? Anytime you have the chance to correct someone, and I believe this is more true than it ever has been before, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. If you have not yet established for someone that they know that you love them, then before you offer the word of correction, make sure you first go and establish so that they know that you love them. When the scriptures encourage us to speak truth to one another, it uses phrases like speaking the truth in love. Do they know that I love them? Listen, if you're responsible for them and you're saying something that will be helpful to them and you're saying it and they know that you love them, correction is going to go so much better. And then I just have to throw this one in because it is Christmas time. Have I chosen a setting? So, one of the biggest things that gives you an aura that does not match peace is when you correct or critique someone in public. My note here I wrote, have I chosen a setting? Let's just try this threshold. How about not at Christmas dinner? That there wouldn't be any words of correction that come in the settings where you want to bring an aura of peace, but you could instead pull someone off to the side, take them out for a cup of coffee, create a setting that addresses the situation and where they know you have a concern for them. You weren't trying to embarrass them. On the flip side, let's think about the threshold for affirming words. The only threshold for affirming words is to ask the question, is it true? Because if someone's wearing an ugly sweater, you should not say, hey, nice sweater. But outside of that, as long as you notice something and you like an encouragement, I want you to say every affirming thing. So, 2 things, right? Whenever something comes to mind that's complimentary, encouraging, affirming, say it. And whenever something comes to mind that's critical or discouraging, don't say it. And I was talking to someone about this message today, and they're like, Greg, like for the rest of my life? And I think, well, yes, but maybe we should just start with a window of time. Because like most transformations in our life, if you start them and you see some results from them, it will cause you to keep doing them. And so I think we're just a couple weeks from Christmas. We're just 3 weeks from the new year. Would everyone who's a follower of Jesus in this room and online resolve with me right now that I will follow this until the new year? When something comes to mind that's awesome, I'm going to say it. When something comes to mind that's critical, I'm not going to say it. Unless it meets those thresholds for correction, I'm just going to overlook it. And you and I, can you imagine this? You and I will be people of peace, with an aura of peace, in a season where we celebrate the Prince of Peace, bringing peace on earth as it is in heaven. It was Jesus who said this, also in the Sermon on the Mount. Salt is good, but if it loses its saltiness, how can you make it salty again? Most of the time when you think about someone being salty, you're not thinking aura of peace. But Jesus is, have salt among yourselves and be at peace with each other.
Before you turn off this video, hit the like, subscribe, and share buttons. We'll see you next week, same time, same channel, and until then, go and be the church. All right.